My best friend really wants me to break up with my boyfriend, and I'm not sure why. My boyfriend, will call him Blake, 25M, and I, 25F, have been together for 3 years. Before we dated, we used to be co-workers at a retail store when we were both 17. The first thing I noticed about Blake when we met was that he never smiled or showed any emotion. He always had a serious, stoned look on his face. He hardly, if ever, showed any emotional sentiments. I don't know how to describe it accurately, but just imagine Eminem or Shadow from Sonic and how they both always have a serious look on their faces. That's how Blake is. Even when customers or our co-workers would try to joke with him, he never cracked a smile or laughed, which would make it awkward for them. However, Blake has always been respectful to those around him and never once raised his voice throughout his whole career. Our co-workers always thought Blake was weird and warned me to avoid him. However, despite all that, Blake and I ended up getting along great and became good friends. I never really minded that he never showed any emotions and still thought he was a good person. He even put up with my loud, extroverted self, LOL. Over the years, Blake and I became close, and I would occasionally see him smile or laugh, which I would lightly tease him about when it did happen. On my 22nd birthday, which is on Valentine's, Blake had asked me to come over to his house and said it was serious, and when I got there it was full of decorations and flowers, and Blake was dressed nicely. He gave a long speech about how much our friendship meant to him and that he was grateful he had met me, and asked if I wanted to be his girlfriend. I swear it felt like I was in a 70s rom-com movie. It was the first time I had seen Blake so vulnerable. He still had his cute, serious stone face on him, but I could tell he was extremely nervous. I, of course, said yes, and we had been a happy couple since then. Now, on to the issue. My best friend, let's call her Sarah, 26F, and I have been friends since we were in 5th grade. Sarah and I were each other's partners in crime. She and I were really close before I met Blake. She had never met Blake before, as at the time he and I were just barely talking, and by the time we graduated high school, she had moved away to stay with her dad in another city, so she never got the chance to meet him. I, of course, talked about him and showed pictures of him and me together when we became closer and started dating. However, she once stated how she found it weird that he never was really smiling or seemed happy when he was with me, and that I shouldn't be dating someone who doesn't want to be happy around me. I brushed it off and just assured him that's how he is, and that he is actually a sweet guy. Looking back, I probably shouldn't have looked past what she said, but at that time, I thought she was just being a protective friend. She had recently come back to our city and wanted the 3 of us to meet together. We decided to meet at a restaurant her and I used to hang out at. When we got there, Sarah and I ran at each other and squealed like little girls while Blake just stood and watched us. When Sarah looked at Blake, I noticed her expression immediately changed, and she awkwardly smiled and shook his hand and only said hi to him. Blake just nonchalantly said it was good to meet her. She then went back to talking to me, completely ignoring my Blake. When we got our menus, Blake couldn't find a meal he would enjoy and just said he would be fine with a small appetizer. Sarah unexpectedly said, "Why? Is nothing here good enough for you? Why would you agree to come here if you weren't going to get anything then?" She tried to say it like it was a joke, but any person can tell it was obviously not. I then defended Blake, claiming he could have whatever he liked, and it wasn't a big deal. Sarah then dropped it at that. Throughout our dinner, Sarah was ignoring Blake and was only trying to talk to me. Blake just stayed silent and watched us, not really caring about it, as he normally is not a big talker when meeting people. When she did include him, she would seemingly only ask him questions that would only need a one-word answer. And when he did answer, she would just give him side eyes or just say, "Okay then." I could already tell Sarah did not like Blake, but I couldn't understand why. She wasn't directly being rude to him, but I could tell when she was making snide remarks about how he was emotionless and whatnot. At one point, she excused herself to the bathroom, and when she left, I asked Blake if he was okay, and he assured me he was okay and just wanted me to catch up with my friend. I apologized for how she was acting, and he claimed he didn't care about it and was just happy I was with my friend. I was relieved he wasn't hurt by what was happening, but still felt bad for him. After dinner, the 3 of us went for a walk to see the buildings and stores, and Sarah seemed to be more cheerful. We then came across a person walking a small puppy. I love dogs so fucking much, and Sarah and I cooed and were giggling at how cute the puppy was. Blake was just standing, watching us fawn over the puppy. Once the dog owner left, Sarah turned to Blake, and she immediately became angry and asked, "How the fuck could you not even smile for a puppy? Are you seriously that soulless?" I was immediately shocked about her sudden change of tone and was about to say something, but Blake just shrugged and walked away, continuing our walk. I asked her what the hell her problem was, and she immediately apologized and said she didn't mean to yell. Our walk then became awkward. I wanted to just go home, but I also felt bad for Sarah, as she still had something else planned for after our walk that she had paid for the three of us to do. So I thought to just suck up until it was over. I then had to use the bathroom, and we found a nearby store. I went in, and Blake and Sarah waited for me outside. When I came back, I found Sarah hysterically yelling at Blake. I immediately ran over to them and asked what the hell was going on. Sarah was in hysterics, but she kept yelling, "It's not going to happen. I will never let this happen." I asked her what she was talking about, but all she said was Blake was a psychopath and demanded I break up with him. I looked at Blake, who was just as shocked as I was. I kept trying to ask the both of them what had happened, but neither would answer me, which scared me. People started staring, and I desperately tried to calm Sarah down to de-escalate what was happening. Eventually, I told Blake to walk back to the car so we could go home, and I would call an Uber for Sarah. When we were alone, I was trying to get Sarah to tell me what had happened, but she just stayed silent. Blake came back to pick me up, and Sarah was just deathly staring at him, and he kept his head low. I didn't know what was happening, and just started assuming they had an argument. Thankfully, Sarah's Uber came and took her back to her hotel. Our car ride home was awkwardly silent, but as soon as we got home, I demanded to know what happened between him and Sarah. Blake just stayed silent, and at that point I was irritated with the both of them not answering my question. Blake said he couldn't say what happened, but that he was so sorry for what happened. That made me even more confused, and I asked him to please just say what had happened. He only said he swore he didn't do anything bad, but that he simply just couldn't say what happened. I then told him I was going to sleep in the guest bedroom, as I just couldn't handle everything that was happening, especially since I still had no answer as to what had happened between the two of them. He said he understood and told me he loved me, and went to our room. This all happened not even a few hours ago. I am currently lying in the guest room, confused and scared as ever. I know Sarah and Blake didn't really get along, but I don't know what caused such a huge fight that neither can tell me about. An hour ago, I got a text from Sarah. I will copy and paste it here. Sarah, I'm really sorry about what happened tonight, but please listen to me. You need to break up with Blake. He is a literal psychopath who is only using you. He doesn't deserve you. I'm telling you this because I love you and want to protect you. Please break up with him. I haven't responded to her text, as I know if I try asking again what happened between them, she won't give me an answer. Reddit, I don't know what to do. I don't know if Sarah had said something to Blake, or if Blake had something to Sarah that caused all this, but I'm scared that neither of them will tell me. Does Sarah simply just does not like Blake because he doesn't like to show his emotions? Any advice on how I can get the truth or at least some answers would be helpful. TLDR. My best friend and boyfriend got into a fight, and now my best friend wants me to break up with him, but won't say what happened. Edit. I would like to thank you all for your input and advice. I currently am unable to sleep and would like to clarify some things. Blake is not a sociopath. The reason I added the story of when he asked me to his boyfriend was to give a slight example on how he can be vulnerable and romantic. I did not want to add this as I felt it wasn't my place to say, but for backstory, Blake and his father did not have a good relationship. All I will say is his father raised him to believe men should show no emotion, and it's the reason why Blake is not an emotional person. There are of course times where he would laugh and smile and even cry. He just wouldn't do it as much as an average person would. Despite Blake being an emotionless person, he still has been very nice and respectful and loving towards me and has never been abusive or even raised his voice at me. Also, I do not believe Sarah and Blake have ever interacted before they have met last night. Blake has to work today, so I will not see him until tonight. I will be speaking to him first before Sarah, and I will update as soon as I can. Also, I apologize if the story is too long or doesn't sound coherent. English is not my best of language, and this is my first time using Reddit. Take care. Edit 2. Sorry for the repost. Unfortunately, my original post was taken down. Just want to let everyone know I'm okay, and still waiting for Blake to come home from work. Sarah has been blowing up my phone since her first text, but I decided not to read her texts in the moment. I want to hear Blake's side of the story first, and the way she's going about it seems uneasy to me. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. She obviously knows him. And both hiding things from you. It's unacceptable. Was he her ex or love interest? Maybe she hid it from you back then. OP. I don't want to say this, as I'm now not 100% sure on it, but as far as I'm concerned, they have never interacted or met before until last night. She never showed any signs other than her being weirded out by him, but that's all I can think of. OP responds to multiple comments about the possibility of Sarah not being interested in getting to know Blake and being judgment of him right there. OP, thank you for your reply. The way Sarah has acted with him during our hangout was very unlike her. She never acted this way when meeting our other friends' boyfriends and girlfriends, although it could be because they were more loud and outspoken than Blake was. I'm just hoping I can figure this out. Update. 2 days later. Hey guys, I'm back with a new update. Before I begin, I just want to thank those who took the time to read and give advice on my post. Now with the update, the night I made the post, I had some time to sit and think about everything that happened. I now know I could have handled the situation better, and I shouldn't have let Sarah continue her horrible behavior towards Blake. The fact that both of them were not telling me what was going on irritated me, and I let my anxiety get the better of me. I wanted to hear Blake out first, so I decided not to read Sarah's messages. I had turned off my phone and spent the day on my computer watching Reddit stories and learning how to use it better and going for a run to get my mind off everything. Once Blake came home, I asked if we could talk, to which he agreed. Taking the advice of a kind Redditor, I sat him down and started by apologizing for walking away from him the night before and for not defending him more during the hangout. I assured him I love and trust him deeply and that I will believe what he says to me. Eventually, Blake told me what happened. Some of you guessed it right. Blake was planning on proposing to me. The way he described it was that when I left, he confided in Sarah that he was planning to propose to me and asked if she could help choose a ring, since she was supposed to hang out with us again another day. Blake then said Sarah asked if he was being serious, and when he said he was being serious, she then started screaming and lashing out at him. She screamed at him that this engagement will never happen. You don't deserve her. And that's when I came outside. To say I was beyond shocked would be understandable. I then hugged him and once again apologized and asked if that was the reason he didn't want to tell me. Blake said yes, and it's because he didn't want to ruin the surprise. He then apologized for not just telling me, saying it wasn't worth keeping it as a surprise if it was causing us problems. I told him it wasn't causing us any problems and that I love him even more now. We both then hugged it out and made up. Blake then asked what Sarah had said about the situation. I admitted to him that I didn't read anything she had sent and just turned off my phone as I was scared of what she had said. After a while, I finally turned on my phone, and I honestly wished I didn't. When Sarah said she wasn't going to let this engagement happen, she really did mean it. I don't know if she could do this to me, but now she's got our friends, my sister, and my aunt involved, and even involved my estranged dad, which was a real low blow. For context, my dad and I are no longer on speaking terms due to an incident with my former stepmom. They're no longer together. After finally reading my family and friends' messages, it sums up that Sarah had told them I'm with a S** psychopath, and that I'm refusing to leave him even when she tried to help. So now, the people who once knew the sweet, loving Blake that I know think he is now a crazy person and are begging me to leave him. I was, and still am, beyond furious. I had spent the whole night trying to clear the air with everyone, except my dad. Unfortunately, my aunt and some of my friends are still agreeing with Sarah, which is breaking my heart. There were so many texts from Sarah, but it ranged from her begging me to answer her to her being mad that I was taking Blake's side and not hers to her apologizing for involving my dad but saying it was for my own good. I had only sent her one text, and it goes as follows, copy and pasted. I don't understand how you expect me to take your side when you never told me why you said what you said. Blake had already told me what happened, and I can't even imagine what your side is. I can't believe you fucking lied to our friends and my family. And for you to involve my dad, how the fuck do you even have his number? Above all, you disrespected my relationship and my boyfriend. Fuck you. I have since blocked her. She never told me why she wouldn't tell me what happened, so I still don't know what her motive was on that part, other than to try to break us up. Not a great update, but Blake and I are doing okay. He has been very understanding and patient throughout all this, and I couldn't be more grateful for him. I know this might not be the end of this nightmare, so I may update again soon. I just don't know how to go about this. How can I convince my friends and my aunt that Blake is a good person? Should I somehow get Sarah to admit she was lying? Once again, thank you all for your advice. To the one Redditor who said my story was fake and that I shouldn't be with someone like Blake, I just want you to understand that these types of cartoonish situations can unfortunately happen to us. And also, Blake is one of the best things that has ever been brought into my crazy life, and I couldn't imagine my life without him. So screw you. Anyways, I may see you all again soon. Take care. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Glad you blocked Sarah out of your life. And I'm glad you and Blake are doing better. I just have a few questions and suggestions. If you don't mind sharing, is your mom still in the picture? Or have you also cut contact with her? Did your dad know about Blake before you cut contact with him? Have you ever had a previous relationship before Blake? If so, has Sarah ever acted this way before? Do you know Sarah's sexuality? I said this in your original post, but maybe she's freaked out about the proposal because she might like you? Has she ever shown any signs that she perhaps might have feelings for you? Maybe try sitting your family and friends down to explain the situation better. If you were able to convince your sister and some of your friends that Blake is a good boyfriend, maybe try asking them to help you to convince your aunt and your other friends. Unless you don't care anymore, if you want to find out why Sarah wants to break you guys up, maybe you can meet with her in a public place and make her explain everything and why she's been acting like this. Oh, unfortunately, my mother passed away when I was young. But remembering her, I know she would have gone bananas if someone was trying to stop me from having an engagement. Yes, my dad did meet Blake, but at the time he was not my boyfriend. At the time, my dad simply didn't care about the friends I had. When he met Blake, he did think he was creepy and asked if he was depressed. To which I, of course, shut down quickly and since kept Blake away from my father. I've only ever had one date when I was 15 before Blake, but never a relationship. He is my first real boyfriend. Sarah did help me get ready for my first date, so I guess she was excited for me. She did not act out like how she did with Blake. As far as I'm concerned, Sarah is straight. She has never confided in me that she might be any other sexuality. She has had boyfriends in the past. She may have been touchy with me, like touching my hand or hitting my shoulder when we share a laugh, but that's about all I can think of. Thank you so much for your suggestions. My sister is currently living with my aunt, and I have asked her if she can help me talk to my aunt about this. Did Sarah have her fair share boyfriends? Could she be jealous of OP being in a relationship with Blake? OP. Sarah has had her fair share of boyfriends before. Her last relationship lasted a year before they broke up, which was about 2 years ago. She had moved away from our city after we graduated, so we would mostly FaceTime every other day. This is the first time I've seen her since after we graduated. Blake has been my only boyfriend, so she hasn't had the chance to nitpick people I've dated, but she's never done this to our other friends' boyfriends and girlfriends. I have a feeling this could all be coming jealousy, but why it's only directed at me is what's confusing me on that theory. Commenter 2. If your family and friends are so ready to believe her, that tells me you haven't introduced Blake to them, or not very often. Bit of life advice. Him hiding all his emotions is not healthy and will come out to bite you in the ass at some point. He keeps everything bottled up, likely part of that whole. Men, just get on with it. They're not allowed to cry, laugh, show love, or any other positive emotion. They can show only anger, disdain, and arrogance. In short, negativity. If you have kids, if you have sons, will you want them to grow up with the same mentality? He needs to learn to trust and express himself more, or this kind of thing will happen more often. It will damage his ability to go further in life, because no one trusts a closed-off, emotionless person. Whether he gets therapy or just starts to loosen up, he needs to learn to be more outwardly expressive. He doesn't have to tell everyone his life story or be the life of the party, but he needs to learn he's allowed to smile at things, to chuckle, to shake his head, or express himself in some way. OP. The only person I haven't introduced Blake to as my boyfriend is my dad. He's only met him once as my friend. My friends and my family have met Blake a good amount of times, so for them to suddenly believe Sarah over the times they met Blake makes me question whether Sarah had said something worse that I'm still not aware of, or that they have bad opinions on Blake that they think behind my back, which is what I'm worried for. The topic of us having kids has came up before, and of course Blake does not want our kids to be emotionless or want to hurt me even though he never has, which is what he's tried to go to therapy for. Having that said, it's not easy to undo almost 20 years of having your dad mentally abuse you and drill into your head that men don't show any emotion, and a lot of his therapists haven't helped him. He doesn't want our kids to grow up like he did, so he is still trying. I apologize for not mentioning that part in the post. He does show some vulnerability moments with me. For example, I've seen him cry, full-on laugh, and smile. It's simply just not easy for him to do it to people he's not close with. Commenter 3. I don't know. Why would he ask someone who had been openly hostile to him all day to help pick a ring for you? OP. When I was a little girl, I used to love to wear jewelry. Though some were plastic and fake, I would always wear rings and necklaces. Sarah and I even had matching friendship bracelets. When I went into 8th grade, I stopped wearing jewelry. Since I lost an important ring, I have feared of losing any other piece of jewelry since. The reason Blake asked her was because we were supposed to go to the mall for our next hangout, and since she was the only one who saw my jewelry phase, except my sister and my aunt, he wanted her opinion on what he thought I would like. He said had she never visited us, he would have asked my sister, but since Sarah was already here, he wanted to quickly get the ring. Though I now would have preferred if he had waited to just ask my sister, but it melts my heart that he couldn't wait. Commenter 4. I'm guessing those family and friends have always had reservations around his personality, but now that shit-faced Sarah is jumping and hollering around, it's made them think about different interactions with him and blowing them out of proportion. Not that she is owed it, but maybe at knowing that he comes from an abusive family, if she doesn't already, will help her understand the way he holds himself more. People are so shit, but I'm happy for you both. Do you actually end up proposing or? OP. She doesn't know about his past, so maybe explaining it could help, but I only would want to do it if Blake is open to sharing it. Thanks for the advice. As for proposal, no, Blake didn't propose yet. He doesn't have the ring, so he won't be able to do it yet. He's a little upset that the surprise is ruined, but I've assured him he doesn't need to be, as I will be surprised the day he goes down on one knee. I'm already squealing at the thought. Smiling face with smiling eyes. Update number 2. Hey Redheads, I'm back again. Sorry for the wait. I'm here with another update. Welp, here we go again. After my last update, Blake and I had a discussion regarding the issue with my family and friends. In my last post, I stated that Sarah has told my sister, aunt, a strange father, and my friends that Blake was an abusive partner who was a sociopath, and that I was refusing to leave him. I invited my sister over and asked her what exactly Sarah had said to her about Blake and me. My sister told me that Sarah had told her that while we were hanging out, Blake had been acting cold and rude towards me. She claimed he was ignoring me and lashed out when I tried to talk to him, TF. She then supposedly tried to tell me he was acting toxic towards me and that I should leave, to which I supposedly refused and told her to mind her own fucking business. Then when I left, Blake had told her he was going to marry me, and that's when she lashed out. So other than that last part, she told a whole big fat lie. After some confirmation from other friends, it was clear that's the story she told. I was pissed, and so was Blake, especially since his proposal was ruined. Some commenters and even my sister suggested I get everyone who was told this lie to meet with me and clear the air. So we decided to do that. I had made a group chat of those that had contacted me about Blake besides my dad, and the others I was able to convince and told them that I needed to have a face-to-face talk with them all and that this all needed to end. As much as I wanted to just do it in text, I wanted them to all see how serious this was. So we all mutually agreed to meet on Monday night. Come Monday night, after everyone sat down, I started off by saying how amusing it was how they all instantly believed Sarah over me and how angry and disappointed I was in them. I then told the real story of what happened, on how Sarah acted towards Blake and every word she said. I spared no detail. I then made it crystal clear that Blake was a good boyfriend and still the same good, caring person they met, and I'm not going to go out of my way to prove it, especially if they're going to believe someone who had only met Blake once over me. I ended my ramble by stating that anyone who tries to tell me to break up with Blake again or call him any names will be cut off. Thankfully, they all finally believe me and have apologized to Blake for how they acted and to me for automatically believing Sarah. Though I mainly just wanted them to apologize to Blake. I thought that would be the end of it. I was able to convince everyone that Sarah was lying. I had Sarah and my dad blocked, and Blake and I were as happy as ever. But I spoke too soon. On Thursday, while I was at work, I got a notice from our security team telling me my girlfriend was here to see me. HUH. I obviously knew who it was. However, I went down to see her anyway, as I feared if I didn't go see her, she would lash out like how she did with Blake. When I saw her, she looked happy to see me, but I was pissed. I told her she needed to leave and never try to come near me, and not to dare to go near Blake, or I was going to call the police. She started her crocodile tears and told me this was the only way to talk to me. She told me after I told everyone the real story, they all got mad at her for lying, and most of our mutual friends cut her off. I told her she deserved it for trying to ruin my relationship. She started to apologize and told me she didn't want to lose me and that she wanted to explain herself. At that point, I was already scared and embarrassed as she started getting loud, and we got some stares. I told her she had her chances to tell me her side. Instead, she chose to spread a lie and try to turn everyone against Blake. Again, she kept trying to apologize and said she didn't mean for all this to happen. I gave her one last warning to leave, or I will have security make her leave. Thankfully, and surprisingly, she did leave. I was on edge the rest of my shift, afraid my boss would have come in and told me what he saw, or that Sarah would have come back. Then I kept getting messages from a random number calling me a stupid B-word and that they hated me. I had no idea who it was from. My strong guess was my father since it sounds like him, but every time I blocked the number, a new one would text me. After I got home, Blake was waiting for me and asked what was wrong. I confided in him what happened. I don't know why I became so emotional, but I started to cry. I honestly was just too stressed out by everything that was happening, and I had a small fear all this would make Blake break up with me over all this. What did this beautiful man say? He reassured me that was never going to happen, and that I was his girl, and that he smiled on the inside the night I was defending him to my friends and aunt. To the Redditor who DM'd me telling me I don't deserve Blake, you are right. I really don't deserve such an amazing boyfriend. I thank my lucky stars every single day that I was gifted such a gentleman. Ever since then, I have been getting a lot of unknown calls and texts. I have taken screenshots of all of them before blocking, as I will probably need to file a police report. My sister and some of my friends suggested I meet with Sarah and have her admit everything she's done and even finally get her side of the story. Blake told me to choose whatever I feel safe with. After talking long and thinking about it with Blake, I have decided to go with meeting her. I had unblocked her and told her I was open to hearing her out now on the condition we meet at a public place, and she told me the full truth. I had sent that message a few hours ago, and she hasn't responded, which is scaring me. I know you all were probably hoping this update would be about Sarah finally telling us what's going on. I am strongly hoping she will agree to the meeting so I can finally understand everything. Do you all think it's a good idea to meet up with her? I would love to hear your guys' theories on what Sarah will tell me since my sister already has so many LOL. Before I end this already long post, I want to thank all of you again for your comments and suggestions. A lot of you have been helpful. I also wanted to clarify some comments. To the 90% of you asking if Blake might be autistic. To that, I don't know. I don't know if he's ever taken a test to confirm it, or if he has but never told me. But I will not push him to do either if he doesn't want to. And yes, he has tried therapy before, but it didn't help him as most of his therapists weren't helpful to him. He is, however, currently looking for a new therapist. Secondly, this is the last time I'm going to say this, but Blake is not abusive or a bad person. Say it with me now. I cannot stress or give any more examples of how many times he has been nothing but a good and considerate person. Blake is my gentle giant. Seriously, he's very tall. It really saddens me all the accusations people like him get just for not showing any emotional sentiments. Yes, we have had small arguments and fights early in our relationship, but what relationship hasn't? Never has he even raised his voice at me. Thirdly, to those asking why I haven't heard Sarah's side yet, it's because she wouldn't tell me her side. From the night the event happened, I literally went to her first to ask her what was wrong, and she even had the chance to text me literally anything if her problem was Blake being nearby. But she didn't. Instead, she goes and not only tells people lies, but then involves my dad. I will now soon be hearing her side, if she actually tells me this time. And lastly, to those of you who are making fun of me for saying to think of Blake as like Eminem or Shadow, I'm sorry, okay? Loudly crying face, I'm not good at describing someone. 2 weeks before my first post, we had seen the new Sonic movie. I grew up watching and playing Sonic LOL, and Shadow pretty much reminded me of Blake. So please give me a break. Loudly crying face. Anyways, I will obviously be back with another update after my conversation with Sarah. Wish me luck, and take care. Relevant comments. Does Opie think Sarah will bring the dad to the meeting to confront her about Blake? Opie, even if she does, I will not care. I only want this meeting to have her confess to the lying and possibly the unknown calls, if she's the one doing it. Commenter 1. Meeting with Sarah feels dangerous. Like the previous person said, don't go alone if you do meet up with her. And also don't leave your home and vehicles unguarded at this time, because Sarah sounds absolutely deranged. She will not tell the truth, ever. And she might have people on her side that she has convinced. Please file a police report because this whole situation sounds very unsafe. Commenter 2. If you are finally going to see Sarah, please don't let yourself be convinced to meet in a private place. Talk in a public place and don't go alone. Go with someone who can help you in case something physical happens. Also, record the conversation so she can't lie again. Protect yourself in every possible way. Commenter 3. Someone showing up at your place of work to make drama or Worse, trying to do an intervention for someone experiencing domestic violence has crossed so many lines. If you were actually in a DV situation, this is the kind of behavior that could escalate it and get someone killed. I am happy you are in a loving relationship, but this is not a person acting rationally unless she is deliberately trying to hurt you. There is no angle from which her behavior is appropriate. When I had something similar happen to me, my HR worked with me to get me extra security, and the police notified. If you do see this person, please have a safety plan and do not go alone. If you can, record the interaction.